people will read these stories and they will worry. It is only natural for that to happen.
We would be happy if the matter is being handled internally and the customers get an update on this. Their role as stakeholders is secondary. Transparency is limited to the minimum requirement. I think that is what customers will feel better if they remove some of these issues.
As a corollary to this, these banks, if they were to give me a loan, the whole host of documents will be asked for. Know your customer, PAN, Aadhaar, ITR, 3-year return, bank statement, salary slip, everything. They want my KYC, know your customer. Why should I not ask for KYB, know your bank?
And HDFC should have also given a statement in terms of answering some of your questions. The customer also gets a 360-degree, kind of a view.
I must remind Atanuji, if I ever meet him, that there's something called trust, right? And the trust that we are taught as bankers when you join your banking jobs, and I think he's obviously forgotten about it. Trust stands for transparency, resilience, underwriting quality, stability, and treatment of customers. That's the full form of trust. And I must tell you, obviously, he's kind of compromised it very badly.
Hello and welcome. My name is Sanket Upadhyay. You're watching me on The Federal. The show is called AI with Sanket because news in India today requires not artificial but analytical intelligence. That's why the AI of news. On this show today, we are going to talk about India's largest private sector bank, HDFC Bank. It's huge. It has 12 crore customers. Imagine the number of people who have invested and put in their hard-earned money in this bank. And for one of the top bosses of this bank to leave on the 18th of March, to resign on the 18th of March, and allege in his letter that certain occurrences were happening in the bank that were not in congruence with my ethics. It makes many people, including me, who I am an HDFC customer, to wonder, what are my rights? What is wrong with the bank? This is such a huge bank. If anything goes wrong, what will happen to my savings? The market share of this bank has tanked. Investors are jittery. I would like to show you stories right now of this big company called Jefferies, which has exited HDFC Bank amid the chairman's resignation. So when there is no statement from the bank, where they feel no accountability towards the consumer, the end consumer, me, what should I do? Should I withdraw my money or should I keep that money? Is the bank safe? I'm being told by the RBI, being told by, and in one-off statements that yes, their fundamentals are very strong. But how do I believe you? We have seen instances in the past where banks have been accused of wrongdoing, and then who suffers? There is a cap which is imposed on the withdrawals, a cap of 1,000, then raised to 25,000, then 50,000. It happened in the PMC case in Mumbai in 2019. It happened in Yes Bank's case in 2020. Who suffered? The consumer, the account holder, people like you and me. So in a situation like this, shouldn't we expect that our banks show the same accountability that they want us customers to show? They want our KYC. Try taking a loan from any of these banks. They will ask for your PAN, Aadhaar, income tax return, all sorts of things, all documents. Know your customer, KYC. Is it not time for you to ask HDFC, KYB? Know your bank. You want my KYC, I want your KYB. What is happening in HDFC Bank from the consumer's point of view? Let's discuss. All right, joining us right now on this program is Mr. Nasser Salim, Managing Director of Flexi Capital and a private banker, former city banker. And we also have with us Professor Bejon Kumar Mishra, International Consumer Policy Expert. Thank you very much, a very noted voice on consumer rights. I want to begin with Professor Bejon Mishra first. I know this is a banking related story, Nasser Saab, so you should have had the first shot, but yet Professor Bejon Mishra, and I'll tell you why. Because the focus of this program is going to be consumers. It is going to be the 12 crore consumers of HDFC Bank. Do you feel, Professor Mishra, that somehow in this whole conversation about boardroom politics, HDFC being downgraded by Jeffries, Atanu Chakravarti versus someone else, ego battle, amid all of this RBI statement, somehow we seem to have forgotten about the basic rights of 12 crore consumers of HDFC Bank. One basic question: should I keep my money or withdraw that money?
So, Sanket, firstly, let me thank you for giving me the first opportunity, because normally the consumer is heard last, they never heard first. So, you have broken the tradition and you have given the consumer the right to express prior to the banker talking about the ethics and other kind of activities. So, what I want to tell you is that look, for a common account holder of HDFC Bank, the consumer definitely gets a bit perturbed when they hear these kind of stories in the public domain, but they are unable to decode it, they are unable to understand what's going on, because they have a trust in the bank and they believe that the regulator, which is the RBI, is always keeping a good oversight in terms of all the working ethics of the bank, in terms of commercial activities. They are following the law, they are following the rules. So the consumer, in my view, should not get panicked at this point of time. And they should not be withdrawing money, because that is not the right kind of a my money in HDFC. I have trust in that bank. Building a trust in individuals or building a trust into some of the officials who may be having some kind of an acronym, or is a bank uh, behaving in the manner which I expect. And being a customer, I always want that I should be well protected, and the regulator is doing that to give a statement. I'll wait for the maybe the Ministry of Finance to give a statement on these kind of issues. Don't take me otherwise. Media always
Sure. No,
wants
I understand.
spicy
And this is really
stories,
sage
so
and
they
sound
will carry
advice
it
coming
very
from
fast,
Professor Bejon
just like
Mishra,
you.
that
The
the
truth
idea
to
here
the
is
citizens,
not for
and that
people
is
to
why I am
panic.
also here, because you carry an image.
Yes, you
As a
don't
journalist, you carry an image. So we are
you don't want people to panic. I understand. Professor
happy to be with
Nasir
you.
Salim, Nasir Saab, I want to come to you now and want to understand from
Ji.
you, if you could explain to people what has happened. You see, one is a legal banking, in banking terminology, something has been said, something is happening, some action, try legal, Gandhi and company, all of this is banking knowledge, is technical
Yeah.
knowledge, it's jargon. But from the standpoint of me, I'm an HDFC customer. So what is my right? Should I deserve to know what is happening in this bank in layman terms, if you could tell me?
Sure. Good afternoon, Sanket ji, and to your fellow panelists as well. Bahut bahut namaskar. So, very important point, and I'm glad we are raising this issue from, the end customer perspective, Sanket ji. I think, from a customer's perspective, allegation, I think the clear distinction before I start my discussion is, from a customer's perspective, an allegation is not a conviction, Sanket ji. Customers do not decide who is right or wrong. That is for the courts, as you rightly said, and the regulators to decide. But I think what customers need to assess today is how the institution is reacting and how openly concerns are being addressed and whether trust is actively protected or not. I think that distinction is crucial, Sanketji. I think, as far as, for customers, if you broadly ask me, a bank is not just a service provider, right? It is a custodian of lifetime savings. So I think when an issue like this evolves, like the CEO, the chairman, when he's referring to such incidents, I think the culture flows from the top, as we all know. Governance quality is being tested at, in this case, the HDFC Bank, for example. Internal checks may be under stress. So I think from a customer's perspective, uh, you know, if something is being contested at the highest level, is the system strong enough to protect you or me also as a customer? I think that is what is more important, and I think that is where the rational concern should be. Now, customers are generally, forgiving of disputes. What they're comfortable with is ambiguity. Uncomfortable with is ambiguity. Jahan pe bhi ambiguity aayega, Sanket ji, they get very uncomfortable saying, listen, what's going to happen to my deposits? What's going to happen to my savings? And I think that is what uh, will clear the role ahead. Now, obviously, the silence from the bank is worrisome, net for the investor perspective and from the customer. Because when a large bank like this responds only with legal denials, procedural statements, short exchange filings, I think that is where things start to worry. Customers, on the other hand, and since your platform is covering a very important point here from customers' perspective, I think we would be happy to see, and as a prior banker, I can tell you, we would be happy if the matter is being handled internally and the customers get an update on this. Their role as stakeholders is secondary. Transparency is limited to the minimum requirement. I think that is what customers will feel better if they remove some of these issues. I think if nothing is wrong systematically, why isn't the bank saying so clearly and calmly? I think that is the point that the customers would want to know today.
Very well
Sanketji.
said, Nasir Saab, because this is exactly what has not happened. The bank has
Exactly.
not given this assurance. You are internally, you have had a transition of power. SEBI is saying we are looking into it. RBI has issued one statement after 18th of March, that is the day of the resignation. After that, 3 people have been sacked in HDFC for mis-selling, and a whole host of other things are happening where Jeffries has now completely moved out of HDFC. It has
Correct.
moved out. Here is a report of Money Control and other websites where Jeffries has exited HDFC Bank. Now, my point is, when there will be no assurance from RBI, from SEBI, from government, finance ministry, and from other institutes, then people will read these stories and they will worry. It is only natural for that to happen. Professor Mishra, I want to know from you, what stops from these agencies? What stops these agencies from showing their commitment to their end user? And as a corollary to this, these banks, if they were to give me a loan, the whole host of documents will be asked for. Know your customer, PAN, Aadhaar, ITR, 3-year return, bank statement, salary slip, everything. They want my KYC, know your customer. Why should I not ask for KYB, know your bank? Is it not my right?
Well said. No, well said. That's your right. As a right of the consumer, the right of the consumer is, number one, is to ensure that there is some kind of a standard followed in terms of the business conduct, which is very important. Then the consumer's right is to transparency, accountability, right to information, right to be heard, right to be represented, right to quality of service, right to redressal. These are all constitutional legal rights given to our Indian consumer today in our country. Now, having these rights, the bank is absolutely mandatorily required to come out with clear-cut, simple language informations in terms of making it public what is going on, so that the customers don't panic. And that is what, Sanket, was my initial opening remark, that you have to ensure comfort to the consumer so that they don't panic, they don't take any drastic actions right now, they need to wait, and they need to also get credible information. When I mean credible, a statement from the finance ministry, I just now saw, say, in your visuals, that SEBI has intervened. They are investigating, this resignation letter. Now, as a customer, I'm an account holder anyway, and I as an account holder, I definitely went to HDFC because I had a trust in that they take interest of their customers, and they have been taking interest of the customers, and all my relationship managers, they're excellent. But there's no call from the relationship manager. They should have given me some kind of a comfort. Now, these are some of the interventions which the bank should be able to adopt, and not wait for the regulator to tell them to do it. It should be done, on their own in a voluntary manner, which doesn't happen in our country. They take it for granted that whatever is coming in the public domain in terms of media coverage, to take a decision, which I feel is not right. In my view, Sanket, These kind of conversations which you are having, and HDFC should have also given a statement in terms of answered some of your questions. The customer also gets a 360-degree, kind of a view in terms of what
That's
to
right.
do now. Like
Nasir
if I
Saab,
tell the customer
Nasir
don't
Saab, we
panic,
know that
it doesn't make any
HDFC
sense to the
Bank is
customer.
and obviously I can never be an expert such as you are, as a banker yourself, as someone who's extremely scholarly and scholastic about these issues. But having said that, I'm aware that HDFC is a DSIB bank, which in layman terms essentially means that it is strategically a very important bank, and that means it is too big to fail. All the strobe lights will be on HDFC. It's the largest private bank, second largest bank of the country. So for it to falter, there will be a huge problem. So all the strobe lights will be there. Everybody will. But you see, this country, Nasir Saab, has seen 2019 Punjab and Maharashtra Cooperative Bank, where honest depositors had a limit of 1,000 rupees, 5,000, 25,000, and then slowly increased. Why? Because bank did something silly. Cut to 2020, Yes Bank, again a limit imposed by RBI of 50,000. Why? Because the bank faltered. Now, if something wrong is going in HDFC, the scale of the problem will be huge. 12 crore people will be affected. I want to know from you, why should I not be concerned?
So, very, very, again, important, pertinent point, Sanket ji. So, two things, this small distinction there I'd like to bring in our discussion right now. So, while Yes Bank, of course, did come under scheduled commercial banks under the RBI regulator, I think the earlier bank, the cooperative bank that you mentioned, which happened in 2019, and incidentally, I appeared on your prior media platform that you were a part of, and we were doing that coverage. That incidentally didn't come under the regulator RBI. So that's a slight distinction, which has now changed, Sanketji. Cooperative banks have also now been brought in under the fold of the RBI regulation. So one, I think the distinction that is that today, while HDFC is one of the largest, not one of, is the largest private sector bank, I must tell you, it has the highest CASA deposit in private sector banks. When I say CASA deposits, highest number of bank balances, fixed deposits, recurring deposits, current accounts, all of it collectively put together of the entire country as far as the private sector banks are concerned. Now, obviously, that means everyone's money in this 150 crores, of which the number is huge today in terms of banking beneficiaries or banking customers, rather, HDFC will have some part to play in that as an institution. Now, if, God forbid, if there is any hidden material information which has been compromised in terms of filing to the exchange because it is a public listed entity in the public market, there are shareholders, there are subscribers to its shareholders, or if there is any other corporate governance issue that comes up, then obviously it will hit the banking sector hugely. I must admit on your show today that that will be a colossal hit that the banking index at least will take. HDFC also, incidentally, is part of your larger indices. When we talk about Nifty and Sensex, HDFC Bank is also part of that. So you can imagine the impact it can create both on capital markets and on the entire capital outlay in the banking sector. Having said that, I think what is more important is that today, being the largest private sector bank and being consortium to many other lenders for supporting India's industries, I think the need of the hour right now is a clear, crisp communication to all its customers to say that look, your money is safe because we have 4 or 5 key metrics that we perform and that we undertake. Now, what are those metrics, Sanketji? Very, very simple. The current structure of capital adequacy ratio, the one of the most important metrics is that today, what is the capital that the bank has its own in case the bank needs to, it fails, what is the bank capital adequacy ratio that it is available to it to support any kind of failure at the banking level, at the capital level. So it's something called CAR, which we track. The other thing is publish out clean, crisp, clear records on your NPAs. You've had a very good track record of NPAs. You made sure that your non-performing assets are lowest. You have something called price to book. I wouldn't want to get into very complicated metrics here for your viewers, but very simple. And the reason why I'm putting this out today is so that all your viewers and customers who are with HDFC don't do panic withdrawals. You see, the challenge is all of this gets magnified, Sanketji, when why did Yes Bank, for example, stop any major withdrawals? Because they saw that there is a panic like situation. People will run, like you and me will run if we have accounts in HDFC, and because of the magnitude of the situation, they will start withdrawing. And if you withdraw, you don't want a credit crisis in the bank. So the last man standing who doesn't withdraw ends up paying a huge money or cost for money being lost because everybody else is withdrawn the capital. So, or their drawings or their withdrawings. So therefore, I think the bank entity, including RBI, who is the biggest, and I must tell you, this RBI has played a very good role during COVID times. In all times of crisis, RBI has come forward. During Yes Bank's time, RBI came in. They asked the largest public sector bank, like the State Bank of India, to come in and provide capital for a 3-year period. But RBI did that, right? So I think very, very important is RBI's, should come out with a statement to say that, look, we've had our checks and balances. There are RBI audits that happen every quarter, every 6 months, every year. Uh, you know, Clarity needs to be given by the bank also. Clear communication, Sanketji, protect depositors from unnecessary anxiety, prevent rumor-driven narratives, also reinforce the strength of the institution by giving metrics, CASA deposit ratio, your CAR, capital adequacy ratio, talk about gross NPAs, net NPAs, and then be fair to leadership facing allegations by anchoring facts. I think these are very, very important. Strong banks are not weakened by transparency, they are strengthened by it. And I think today, the need of the hour for all its customers, HDFC's customers, both from the regulator perspective and from the institution, is crisp, clear communication
Communication.
that should go out to all its investors.
How nicely
and
put. Yeah, Nasser Saab, how nicely put that strong banks are not weakened uh, by transparency; they're strengthened by it. I think this is a message for the HDFC. But Professor Mishra and then Nasser Saab, one by one, this is my final question. Do you feel certain questions should be asked of this gentleman called Mr. Atanu Chakravarti? Certain things were not to my liking, and then he resigns and goes. Now, how vague a letter is this? If certain things were not to your liking and were not in congruence to your ethics, does it not behoove of a person sitting at that high chair and high office to explain what those certain things were? You can't just say certain things and go away. Where are the strobe lights on him? Where is the investigation? Where is the questioning on Mr. Atanu Chakravarti? Will he not explain what, why, where, when, who, how?
Actually, I missed out on some few lines which you said in this issue. But whatever I could capture, see, of course, it is the responsibility of the official to also come out with a very clear-cut statement rather than just writing some letter of resignation, benefit of the customers also. Then we have all the right to know that. What is it? Is it something very personal? Because he is not, he's working for the benefit of the customers. He is working for the benefit of the bank shareholders in a very responsible manner because of some high moral resigning right away. No, please, you have to say what are those issues. You have to make it very clear, because my contention is we do not want that there should be any kind of a dispute or any kind of a miscommunication due to wrong channel information and giving some kind of a false deceptive kind of a to all these internal squabbles, because they're all, in our view as a customer, are very internal matters which needs to be sorted out internally and not brought out in the public domain, and you do cleaning of the dirty linen, what you are doing all this for, and this is what I'm trying to say. The code of ethics should be very clear. We have to understand how they should behave when they come across such kind of situations where it is against their moral value system. So they should come out publicly. That is my view, and that is how it is. In fact,
Okay.
Sanket, your viewers should know that as well, that PMC Bank case, As a consumer, I had to go to the court to increase it from 1 lakh to 5 lakhs. And today, what we are trying to understand is why not all my deposits get well covered, and so that I know that there is no anxiety. If anything happens to the bank, my money is secure. And we are trying to convince the government that we are paying for the insurance cover of my deposit. Then why should I get 100% coverage towards my deposit because I'm paying for it? My contention is, even though the government is taxed, I'm saying why 100%?
Yeah, we have seen Nasir Saab in the past that Professor Mishra is right. This limit of insurance on whatever the amount of deposit in your bank account per person was 1 lakh rupees only. It was raised to 5 lakh, which came as a huge relief. However, if we were to have insurance of the entire amount, that is going to end any form of anxiety at all and build so much confidence in the banking sector. Having said that, just Nasir Saab, coming back to that question on Atanu Chakravarti, will this not qualify as shoot and scoot? Should he not specify what is it that was going on which was not in congruence with his ethics?
No, I must remind Atanuji, if I ever meet him, that there's something called trust, right? And the trust that we are taught as bankers when you join your banking jobs, and I think he's obviously forgotten about it. Trust stands for transparency, resilience, underwriting quality, stability, and treatment of customers. That's the full form of trust. And I must tell you, obviously, he's kind of compromised it very badly. You cannot shoot and scoot because you have fiduciary responsibility as a banker. And somebody running a large institution like that of HDFC, it is a household name in India. And as I told you at the beginning of my start of my discussion with you, that HDFC is somewhere always connected to every Indian, at least amongst the private sector banks. So I think it was something very irresponsible, if I can say so. What we have to understand here is what was the intention behind doing this. There is also a policy, I must tell you, which in banks, which I was also a part of. I can tell you this, that there is something called a whistleblower policy, Sanketji, which tells you that if you find something which is being compromised, and if you whistleblow, if you go and tell the regulator, the senior management, you get protected. Obviously, if you're found guilty, then there will be clear action on plan for you. But there is a whistleblower policy, and I'm sure HDFC also has one. So if there was something which was ethically going wrong, Sanketji, you could have exercised that option. You could have put that on record. It is a public listed company. When I say public, I mean capital markets listed company. You could have put that on the shareholders, on the cap table meeting. There are so many opportunities that you get as somebody who's leading a bank of that magnitude. So I think obviously it has been very unfortunate that he said something like this. While I can't comment on his personal reasons for doing this, but I think a more an approach which was fundamental to again trust, which I'll again repeat for your customers: transparency, T for transparency, R for resilience, U for underwriting quality, S for stability, and treatment of customers is the last. I think those golden 5 letters, which governs for all of us as bankers to know your bank framework, has been hugely compromised, Jason Keji, and it's very, very unfortunate. But we are hopeful that the regulator in this case and the institution like HDFC will come out and give clarity to all its customers sooner than we expect.
Absolutely. I mean, we are already late. It should have happened like yesterday, but any assurance is going to be a welcome step. Thank you very much, Professor Bejon Mishra, as well as Nasser Salim, for joining us. I believe that this is a very, very important issue, not just for the banking sector, but for the consumers. You see, consumer rights first, consumer awareness first. This bank exists because of its account holders and consumers. So naturally, your biggest stakeholder is that grahak. Jago grahak, ask the question of your bank also. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. Thank you.